Hello and welcome to this ET Now special. It's a big interview. We're getting you the first television interview with Mr. Hardeep Puri, Union Minister for Housing, and he's got now Civil Aviation as well, and the Minister of State for Commerce and Industry. Mr. Puri, a big promotion for you in Modi 2.0, the second term of the government. Clearly a reward for all the work done by as the housing minister, and also maybe for getting the election verdict bang on target. I remember you got it right in an interview to me. I'd like to begin the interview first with aviation. I know it's a new charge. You're taking over at a time when I would say this sector is not just going through turbulence, it's looking at crash landing. You have two airlines on the block. You're taking over after Jet Airways flew into NCLT for bankruptcy, and of course the Air India sale. How are you going to pilot through this?
First of all, I'd be careful with words. When you're discussing the civil aviation sector, you use words like turbulence, it's okay. Crash landing, I don't buy.
Okay.
Look, I'll play some basic facts before you and through you to your viewers. When Jet Airways ceased operation, which was in April of this month, we had something like 540 aircraft in the air. Today we have 560 aircraft and I believe probably close to 580 aircraft. And we'll be adding 2 aircraft a month and we're going up to 600 plus. So the number of aircraft flying, and insofar as the domestic sector is concerned, we have, I think, overcome that pocket of turbulence, number one. Insofar as the external sector is concerned, we have temporarily reallocated the slots that Jet had to the other domestic carriers. Okay, number one. Number two, put Jet Airways on one side. If you look at the combined annual growth rate of the civil aviation sector in the last 4 years, it comes to a whopping 17.6%. Now, madam, 17.6% growth rate with only 7% penetration in an economy which is 2.89 trillion strong, where per capita incomes are low, and you're transitioning to become a 5 trillion economy. You see the kind of growth potential there is for civil aviation here. All right. You talk about turbulence because a particular airline has ceased operation. You can have a separate discussion on why it happened, whether mistakes they made, whether external factors.
But did the government maybe make a mistake, or the banks make a mistake?
Why did the government make...
Or the banks make a mistake by not acting fast enough, and these were government-owned banks?
No, hold on. Let's put it this way. I don't agree with that. Every private air service provider, an airline, has to draw up its own business plans. If those business plans mean that they have not taken the correct business decisions, I just read an article by a former head of one of the apex business organizations saying that Jet Airways actually was doing very well up to a point, and then there were a series of decisions. Now, I am not, as Minister for Civil Aviation, in a position where I can turn around and say, I think your airline went fat because you were siphoning off money, or you did this, that, and the other. That is for the proper legal system to decide. But
there is evidence because, Naresh Goyal has been summoned. He's not been allowed to leave the country. There's been a forensic audit.
Well, I want to be very careful. You are a journalist and you have what I call journalistic license. You can say what you like and later on you can turn around and say, I was trying to provoke the minister. I come from a different... Of course. They were making a mistake. There was an attempt. There could have been a resolution between December and February this year. I mean, all the two parties, well, they fell out. All right?
You mean Etihad and...
Yeah, whoever. Yeah. Look, first of all, I don't want to discuss a particular airline. That's not the purpose of being on a news show. You enter into a business proposition. The two parties could have sorted it out. For some reason, they didn't. Did they fall out because there were differences which were irreconcilable? One was a 24% shareholder, and the other side says, well, we never looked at their plans. That's entirely different. What is a government's job? Our job is to create an ecosystem, which we do through providing airport services, to providing taxation, to providing other things. Airlines, by definition, are capital-intensive operation. They are dependent heavily on external factors. Let me give you one or two examples. The cost of air turbine fuel can vary and can make a big dent on your balance sheet. The closure of Pakistani airspace. costs Air India something like 430 crores of rupees a month. The fact that Air India is for all intents and purposes a profitable airline, but over the years you have accumulated a large amount of debt which is unsustainable. And I used to say that Air India is losing 15 crores a month. I've just answered a parliament question where I said it's losing 21 crores a day. Okay?
So when you were answering that parliament's question, you were also said there were reports that were coming out that were motivated, which were the motivation being that the government should start selling assets and create a panic sort of situation. This is what you said in Parliament while answering those questions. My question to you, sir, is that we are looking at a situation where one is off the air. Whatever happens at NCLT is now beyond that. You are trying to sell another airline. There's a massive disruption in a sector which is consumer heavy.
I'm coming to a different point altogether. I think, first of all, I am a cynic. I'm an admirer of the fourth estate, but what I read in the newspaper in the morning as a student of history, I ask myself, "Ye kisne likhwaya?" Because from there I can know what the motivation is. First of all, we are not in a state of panic. We are in a very comfortable position. We have more aircraft in the air today than we had when Jet ceased operation. Air India, which was hemorrhaging for a while, actually in 2019-20 is going to show a profit.
Number why do you want to sell it?
No, wait a minute, because you've got a 59,000 crore debt.
Which the government may have to absorb for you to sell it. That's the other point.
No, madam, government should not be in the business of running airlines.
Now you sound like Margaret Thatcher.
No, I'm not trying to. I'm absolutely clear. Otherwise, as Minister for Civil Aviation, all I do is receive requests from eminent journalists, senior government officials, ke upgrade kara do. Government should not.
We are not part of that.
Of course, you're not part of it. Government should not be in the business of running airline. Our commitment to privatize Air India is total, and we are going to get it done. You might turn around and say, you tried last time, there were no bids. Well, you can learn lessons from it.
So what are the lessons that you've learned?
One lesson that you've learned, which is what Niti Aayog said and which is what a private consulting firm which looked at it, don't try and sell bits and pieces like that. If you want, somebody wants to come in as buyer, give him the whole lot. Second,
minus the debt.
But the debt we've already
that
retired.
Means the government will absorb
29,000 crores we've already retired.
In an SPV.
Yeah, then you have two choices. Either somebody comes and bids it and some part of your debt recovered, or you do the other. Look, I am not on your TV show going to tell you what our strategy is till the strategy is worked out. There is something called an alternate mechanism, which is going to be set up in the next few days, hopefully.
Days?
You have to. I mean, there is no other way. The press report you were speaking about is a very interesting press report. When I read it, and I said in Parliament, I said, I know where this is coming from. Government are not going to have money to pay salaries beyond October. I mean, I can turn around and turn the argument. We may not need to pay salaries beyond October.
You're saying...
No, I'm saying I might get it done. There was a new... See, this was a news report which was designed to create panic.
No, you're Mr. Puri, you're saying you may not need to pay salaries beyond October because it seems you as Aviation Minister confident that maybe Air India will change hands by October.
But this is what a news report said this morning.
July.
No, since you are discussing at the level of news reports, there is one news report.
What you said in Parliament.
I'm giving you another news report. I was answering a news report. I don't think it's a minister's job.
No,
so
I get that.
Let me complete. It's not a minister's job to respond to every news report. But since an honourable member raised it and suggested that basically these are people, there is a strong lobby in the country which says Air India should not be privatized. There are people who say that. I don't buy that. I am a newly appointed Minister for Civil Aviation. I am absolutely clear in my mind, Air India needs to be privatized, period. It's a very good asset. Look, after Jet ceases operation, Air India is the only international carrier we've got. It has something like 125 planes. 20 planes which were not flying are going to be operational till October. It is flying to 80 domestic destinations. It is flying to 40 external destinations. It's a very good buy. It's a very good buy.
It's a very good buy?
Yeah, it's a very good buy. And I can tell you, again, without divulging something that I shouldn't, there's a lot of interest in buying it.
From domestic carriers, foreign carriers, private equity?
Combination of both. Obviously private. The government is not going to buy another...
private equity.
Yeah, well, it can be combination of that plus, airline operators. It can be domestic plus, others operating domestic. I'm not going to go into that. The alternate mechanism will take care of all that.
Are you looking at a timeline?
I am.
What is that timeline?
Day before yesterday.
So you're already running late.
No, look, I am very new to this, but I am very clear as to what my objectives should be. And I think that's my objectives fall within the overall government's framework of operation.
Mr. Puri, the other priority for you, I would imagine, would be to have a permanent solution to Jet Airways. So far, you're doing temporary allocation of slots.
Well, but let me tell you something. It's not my job to find a temporary solution. If those two parties...
No, I'm trying to get at something else, the slots, the parking rights.
I'm coming to that. I'm coming to that. You can't do one without the other.
Okay.
Two parties, it seemed, between December and February, could have sorted it out amongst themselves. They didn't. The two parties then decided, through a reliable Indian partner, to be able to sort it out outside the NCLT framework. When it became clear, and again, I am not pronouncing on the terms and conditions, the State Bank of India, which was in the lead role of dealing with this issue, they tried to get some clearances. When they were not forthcoming, they decided to go to NCLT. But the good news is, the NCLT also admitted this, has given them 10 days reporting requirement, with the first reporting date any time now. Yeah. They are also looking at a very short-term, immediate solution. If Jet gets revived, you will have to use those slots. Because in a service entity like an airline, which is dependent on the slot...
You really think it can revive?
But not for me to answer. It is for the NCLT. Again, let me tell you, I think there is interest in Jet. By people, I'm not going to go into detail, by those who were trying to do it earlier and some other people. That is something the NCLT process, and that's a clean, neat way of solving the problem.
Since you've taken over, and I'm going to ask this on behalf of the thousands of people who are owed money by Jet because of cancelled flights and receivables, what can be the possible solution for that? They are unsecured creditors.
Well, that's something, again, it's better to do it.
And you're familiar with it because you've had to deal with it as the housing minister in cases like JP.
I'll tell you something. Nayantara, it's easier to do that through the NCLT process than it is to do it any other way. Because when the NCLT process starts, some organizational coordinates kick in. Somebody is made responsible, there's a resolution professional, there are other people who have to do it. Earlier, we didn't know who was in charge. I mean, if it was not gone to the NCLT, you know somebody, and somebody will have to do that. On my part, let me tell you, I am doing whatever we possibly can. We've just gone in the final stages of producing a website. The only real issue is the employees. Employees.
Okay.
Now, if you are adding 20 planes a month, and they require, trained pilots, surely it should stand to reason that those people who are readily available, but at rates at which the airlines can pay. If Mr. Naresh Goyal was paying somebody a higher rate, then the airline taking them over. And by and large, I find that adjustment is taking place. SpiceJet has taken some, Indigo has taken, Air India has taken, etc. That process is going on. But the eternal optimist that I am telling you, we have started the turnaround, okay? This may be an opportunity for some of our domestic airlines to get wide-bodied plane. Because, people who fly these short distances from here to, points in the Middle East, these are not passengers who are going there. These are passengers who are going there in order to, implement fifth and sixth freedom rights and then go on to Canada. But we're starting a direct flight to Toronto. So we have to take every situation as it evolves and you see what best we can do in terms of all the domestic interest.
India's first full-time woman finance minister, while presenting the budget speech, spoke a lot about aviation this time. She's also indicated how India must become the hub for manufacturing aircraft. She talked about liberalizing, repairing MRO as well as leasing and for repairing and also for liberalizing FDI. What can we expect on the FDI front?
Well, first of all, the first full-time woman finance minister. There was another...
she was not full-time.
She was not full-time. That's why I'm saying first full-time.
First full-time. That's what I also said.
First of all, kudos, full of admiration for her. And I've been analyzing the budget from the last several hours with other distinguished members of the Fourth Estate, and I can tell you, there is a silly way of analyzing a budget and there's a sensible way. The silly way is, if it's a BJP finance minister and somebody has distinguished Nirmala, all the Congress politicians will come, there's nothing in the budget for farmers, there's nothing in the budget for so-and-so. Same line which you could have used for the budget in 2019, July, which you could have used in 2010. You understand? So those are there. The other is people who go into the fine print and see what is the allocation, what will be done. For instance, let me tell you about housing, since you and I have discussed this earlier. We were providing a 2%, all right, cushion for people who are taking housing loans. Now we've raised it to 45 lakh. You added another 1.5%. So if you go and take a housing loan for an apartment to be bought for 45 lakh, you virtually pay no interest because you get a deduction of 3.5%. That's very big. For young aspirational housing people is very big. All right, RBI taking over the regulatory function from the National Housing Bank, I think it's a very serious long-term thing.
Yes.
Coming to aviation. Look, many parts of aviation are already on 100% FDI.
Yes.
All right.
That's why I was asking you this.
Put that aside. But what she's done is she's thrown the idea into the, whirlpool of consideration. And there may be parts which we can bring in, because otherwise we are locked into that 51 and 49%.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea. But more than that great idea, there's some tangibles. How much money, for instance, you got 600 aircraft in the Indian skies. You are looking at the possibility of 1 billion passengers in a short period of time. Madam, if the number of aircraft goes up from 600 to 1,000 and then to 2,000 in the years to come, as you transition to becoming a $5 trillion economy or a $10 trillion, don't you think it's in the interest of the airlines and the engine manufacturers to do the MRO here?
Right.
Why would you want to take the engine and take it to Singapore or to Kuala Lumpur?
Yeah.
That is the far-sighted thing.
Okay.
Secondly, leasing. All right, your people are going to Ireland to lease because it's easier money. But if you can do it in Gift City in Gujarat, why not do it? And secondly, you must have the confidence of creating your own hubs.
Yes.
I mean,
are we looking at that?
I am certainly looking at it. Why can't Ahmedabad be a hub? Why can't Mumbai be a hub? All right, Dubai and Abu Dhabi, great. Somebody once told me, I don't know whether I should be saying it, he said, don't these represent, in a sense, India's failure? What we were not able to do over a period of time? Well, I think you should start looking at that. Because you have today the economic clout.
No, and you're seeing private sector participation in airports. Adani's, for example. The Tatas have, made
You
a
had
foray
two earlier. You had two earlier.
You had GMR, GVK, but now the Tatas have made an entry, and you've seen the Adani's. These are
Well, I'll tell you something. So hold on. You probably know more about the civil aviation sector than I know. But wait,
Thank you.
I'm trying to catch up. I'm trying to catch up. No, I am saying something else. I'm saying you had GMR and GVK running. Okay. Now we went to there was a bid for 6 airports.
Yes.
PPP leasing.
Correct.
The good news is, when I saw the bids, I mean, I as a Minister of Civil Aviation, I took it to the cabinet and we've cleared 3 of them. Fantastic. Earlier, the bidders were only 2.
Yeah.
Now you've got Zurich Airport combining with the IIFF, or you've got other people. And when you look at the bids, they are very competitive. One is here, the other is a little below that. The interesting thing I found is that the offer which has been made on these 3, the person who will be operating it will be giving something like 2,399 crores upfront to them. I mean, I don't remember the figures.
Yes, around that one.
Which means that you got it right. Yeah. You were able to. Will this inspire more people to come in?
So how many airports would you look to privatize? What kind of geographies?
I don't know. But I'm sure there will be more. I'm sure there will be more.
Because that will fit in with Udan as well, right?
No, Udan is, you're also looking at 100 underserved and unserved airports. You're looking at those. But in many respects, you have to be very careful. These are the bigger ones, privatization. Some of the airports are already very private. I mean, airport authority is not there. They may be belonging to the state government, or they may be belonging to private entity. But here, when we are talking about PPP, it's about the bigger
Because you also
airport.
give the land around it, right? So because that becomes a real estate play
exactly,
as well.
Exactly.
So, Mr. Puri, I want to now talk to you about housing. You yourself have brought up that the interest subvention, which I think, according to Ms. Sitaraman, will work out to be about 7 lakh rupees through the life of a 15-year loan, for example.
If you the 3.5%, yeah.
But I think the biggest reform, which
Nirmala Sitaraman, you said Chidambaram.
No, I said Ms. Sitaraman.
Okay. Maybe
but the biggest reform perhaps is going to have to be around NBFCs as well as housing finance companies, which has now begun with the National Housing Board, a bank having to lose a regulation to the Reserve Bank of India. The real estate market has been dead now for almost 10 years, since Lehman Brothers, for no fault of the governments or whatever. But you can't have an economy in which the real estate market is dead. how important will it be to make sure you find a solution to the NBFCs, to the housing finance companies? Because there are a lot of real estate companies which are dead. They're threatening the larger financial sector.
You know, the difficulty with bright journalists who go and you put a lot into it. 10 years, Lehman. Okay, let me put that aside. Why did the original crisis take place in the United States? It took place because in the subprime lending segment.
So is INFS our CDO? Is Divan Housing our CDO?
I'm coming to that. I'm coming to that. That was something peculiar to the United States because these guys were going around town and saying, do you want a house? Do you want a house? The guy said, actually not. He said, here, take some money. Go and get yourself a house. My own sense is that our housing issue, separated from ILFS, Jet and Divan or whatever,
and all, yeah.
Our problem is much more basic. Our problem is that as you moved from the culture of impunity to monitored scrutiny, which means that, you know, earlier what happened, and I think I've said this to you on your show, that a lot of people who had money which was unaccounted, instead of keeping it in gunny bags at home, went to the nearest builder or promoter they knew, and they said, "Aap agli bari project banayenge, ye hamare do bore rakh liye, hamare naam pe bhi kar dena." What did they do with the money? The contract signed or the arrangement signed between the buyer and the seller or the promoter on the one hand, they were not properly drafted. Nobody knew what was happening. But the worst part is you did not have a regulator in the real estate sector. RERA. Now I come to why I think it's going to change. First of all, I look at inventories. I look at these 3 projects on the outskirts of Delhi. Noida, Greater Noida and Yamuna Expressway. I am telling you that today, land values have already changed with my metro line, 35 kilometers there.
No, the land prices have gone up and plots are highly sought after.
Once land prices go up, those guys who invested in land parcels and the Supreme Court helps us clean up these 3 projects, I think you're already seeing the beginning of the end of that phase. 10 years, I don't know. A lot of people made a lot of money in not so benign ways, even more recently. I am saying something completely different. I am saying that, you know, when you get into this kind of a man-made mess, with RERA around, with an escrow account for 70%, all this is going to change. Is it going to change in the next 1 month, 2 months? I'm an optimist. I'll tell you something. I thought before the elections, we had already seen the, you know, that, what do you call it, green shoots sign. I see in the next 5-6 months, we'll clean it out. We're getting judgment in one of the cases, I think, in the next few days. In Amrapali's case, I think there is a judgment due. In JP's case, I think the assets are there. In the Unitech also, we're looking at it. We are ready to step in. We are ready to step in. But we are ready to step in not by assuming. We're not a nanny state. If somebody goes and botches up an airline or a real estate company, you can't make a bad business plan, have a failure, and then come to the nanny state and say, please, take over our problem. I discussed with Arunji when he was finance minister. NBCC can step in, but somebody has to provide the money. Either you can provide a stress fund or other thing. None of these things are ruled out. I mean, some of the home buyers who are your clients also, I think seem to make a mistake.
Clients?
Clients in the sense they're viewers, your viewers. I mean, they come to you and agitate. I mean, you're more objective. There's another lady anchor who is more, okay. I'm saying something else. I am saying you want aviation turbine fuel. I'm going back to this thing.
Under GST?
But you want it under GST. But that's not something the budget has to decide.
No, I didn't ask you that question.
No, but somebody did ask me the question. Budget mein kuch nahi.
Don't paint us all with the same brush the way all politicians should not be brushed with this.
I hope so, the politician part especially. But I'm saying that every problem, man-made, which is created by you through your acts of omission or commission, or created by the external factor. I mean, if Pakistani airspace closes down and Air India loses 430 crores a month, I mean, I don't blame Air India for it.
No, you can't.
You can't blame it. So I'm coming...
No, but coming back to NBFCs and housing finance...
I think Nirmala ji said that the problem in NBFCs is now at a stage where it is on the solution track. This is what she said, all right? See, first of all, what happened? Your banking sector came under strain. The banks were the ones who were providing the money to the NBFC. So then the NBFCs naturally had to... Have we completed that? I think we are in the process of completing that circle. I would trust the word of the finance minister, and I think what she said the other day and what is coming out in the commentary after the thing, I think we are on the mend there.
So, Mr. Puri, NBCC, for example, reports to this ministry. If you're going to use companies like NBCC or look at a distressed fund, once again, I ask, where is the money going to come from?
I'm telling you. I have, look, there are informal talks which go on all the time. NBCC is called and said, can you do this? Their answer will be yes, provided. But the NBCC will do it. But they are not going to do it by taking the problem that somebody else has created onto their book. They're not going to inherit the book. So the court, it matters before the court. Let the court come up.
Are you looking at a stressed fund, a distressed fund?
Well, I have been always open to the idea of a stress fund. I have been. But on the other hand, the stress fund is not, it doesn't have come in isolation. It comes in a particular context. And it comes when somebody turns around and said, all right, we will give you so much money. I mean, the home buyers are saying, do a forensic audit of the project, find out where the money is you've got, how much have you got. If you need a stress fund after that, okay, let's look at it.
The government itself had mooted that let us take over Unitech. That didn't happen. And it's ironical that after almost a year, the same Supreme Court said, why shouldn't the government take over Unitech? So the home buyer is holding the short end of the stick. But could this be the strategy that we will see this government deploy, at least with the large developers where you have lakhs of home buyers stuck?
Well, I'm not aware of any strategy or strategy that which was, carefully thought through, etc. What happens is that whenever a project goes into difficulty, the home buyers have several options. I mean, some of them have gone to the consumer court, for instance, and the consumer court has ordered inko deo paise wapas. Now, I respect the decision of all such authorities, but if they decided to go to the Supreme Court, I think it's a little unkind after that to blame the government for it. Who went to the Supreme Court? The home buyers went.
The home buyers.
All right. If the Supreme Court is seized of the matter, any statement that I make, I would be found to be I'm not in violation, but, outright. So I was very careful. Once the matter had gone to the Supreme Court, we are on the sideline.
I got it. Yeah. Hardeep Puri, former diplomat, Minister of State for Commerce, you're taking over with the trade war on. There was a very successful G20 meet as well. But, we have seen irritants between India and the US. It's to note that when Secretary of State Mike Pompeo was in New Delhi, statements came out reiterating our stand as far as localization of data goes or e-commerce goes. But long-term solution for ironing out the irritants? I understand, obviously, the talks are underway, but we are seeing it escalate at the WTO.
I wouldn't say that. First of all, it is entirely not conceivable. It happens all the time. Two countries, two trading blocs, European Union and the United States, closest of political relation, and you have friction on the trade front. Okay. Just now we are going through a very interesting phase where everyone wants to blame the other party for the trading difficulty. And I would say, and I want to choose my words very carefully, it becomes easier when you have somebody like President Trump around. All right. Well, there are a lot of people in the United States who admire him for standing up for his own country's trading interests. All I'm saying is, I don't think any of these trade issues are of such a serious nature that they cannot be resolved.
Okay.